You're listening to Advice from Your Advocates, a show where we provide elder law advice to professionals who work with the elderly and their families.
Welcome back to Advice from Your Advocates. I'm Bob Mannor. I'm a board-certified elder law attorney in Michigan, and today's topic is something that I know a lot of you have been looking forward to. So I've been talking about this for a little bit and mentioned this to a number of guests on our podcast, that we had an opportunity to go to Amsterdam and visit the dementia village, which is called Hogeweyk in the Netherlands. And it was a really great opportunity to see a different way to plan for and to care for dementia. And so fortunately, we were very fortunate that it wasn't just me, Amy Persails, who is our planning services director, and Kelly King-Penner, the other partner in the law firm. All three of us got to go with a group of lawyers and social workers who were able to look at and observe this dementia village in Amsterdam. It is the first dementia village, and there are a few places in America that are trying to repeat this, and there's other places throughout the world that have, are trying to repeat the success of Hogeweyk. And a lot of you have heard of this. You've read articles, you're excited about it. Some of you put it on your bucket list to go visit it. And it was a great opportunity for us. So I've been promising you for a few weeks now that we were going to talk about it. And I'm going to tell you that it took us a few weeks to even analyze it, to really absorb what we experienced, because it was so transformational as far as our thought process. And so I have Amy here, who also did the tour, and it was a multi-day experience where we were able to really immerse ourselves into the dementia village. I thought it would be useful, instead of just me talking about it, to have Amy here and kind of explain what we experienced there, because it's a whole different way of thinking about caring for dementia. So, Amy, the first question I have for you is, what are your initial impressions of when we started out at the first day at Hogeweyk? What were your initial impressions?
It was overwhelming,
Yes.
I would say. First, the village itself, the first interaction that we had, we saw a few residents walking around, but we were taken into this theater area.
Yes.
Where they gave us more of a background, some rules, and
no pictures.
Right, no pictures. Just a lot of things that were very enlightening.
It was not a tourist opportunity to take selfies and promote yourself. That was not what this village is about. It's really about the residents. And it really is about the residents. Everything we saw was about the residents. So I want to expand on what you said about going into the theater in the first day, that we kind of started there. And I'm a person that has lots of questions always, right? I can't help myself if they start telling us about what's going on, and I just have questions. And so I started asking all these questions, and they were kind of like, well, just wait and see. Wait and see. So I had questions like, well, what happens when family visits? Okay, but what happens if somebody falls? But what happens if what happens at night, and they were just, okay, yep, we're going to answer all those questions, but wait and see. And I wasn't satisfied with that, but I was once I waited. And it was very interesting because all the questions I had, particularly as a lawyer, because lawyers tend to be very skeptical about things, and they were all answered by observing it. So I want to start off with a story about our experience, because I think they broke us up into a couple different groups, and we had, a guide. One of our guide was one of the founders, and then there was another very talented and well-spoken guide. So we had the second one, and she was great. So we were just going to walk around the village, and they made a point of, this is not a tourist distraction. We're not going to be taking selfies. We're not going to be taking pictures. We're going to go out, we're going to talk, and people are going to interact with us. So tell us a little bit about our experience when we, kind of started what we would have said is a tour, but really was just walking around the village, about the folks that came up and kind of joined our tour.
They did tell us that some people may walk up and join our tour, but until you experience it, you just don't understand what they're experiencing. And we had a nice lady that walked up, and this was our tour guide. Mm-hmm. And she explained, we were from America and
in Dutch,
yes,
because the
right.
person didn't speak English.
Right. She didn't speak English. She explained to her in Dutch, and she told us after what she talked to her about, and invited her along if she wanted to tour with us. And she did. She stayed with us almost the whole time. She walked around with us. She was very engaged, and Iris was speaking to us in English the whole time. She would stop and have a conversation here and there, but the woman was very engaged. She walked around with us. She was just a part of her day. It was she was enjoying herself, and they like to have visitors. All of the residents were friendly. Everyone just enjoyed having people there.
So, and I know this is challenging, so don't, if you're a caregiver, if you work in the long-term care industry, just stop imagining how we might do it here first and just accept how they do it there. Let's just look at it that way first. And then we can talk about how some of it might be adapted here. Because I know as people in the caregiving industry would be like, okay, you allow them to wander aimlessly? And the answer there was, yeah, yep, we do allow them to wander. And it was built like a traditional Dutch village, meaning it was cobblestone, right? So not the safest environment to be walking on. We're going to talk a little bit about that as far as safety and all of that in a minute here. But I want to talk a little bit about our visitor. Amy and I have both visited a lot of memory cares, a lot of great places, and they're doing a fantastic job. But the typical answer when a patient or resident, starts, being curious about what we're doing is they try to distract, right? Distract is a word that we use a lot. I've used it so many times to try to help families understand how, okay, somebody's getting agitated, let's try to distract them. Distract is not a word they use at Hogeweyk.
No.
I was amazed by this. She would stop our tour and answer her question. Now, she later shared with us some of the times that she was talking in Dutch, and this was a native Dutch speaker, right? Iris is a native Dutch speaker. She said she was not speaking in ways that I could understand. It was, this might be not the best way to say it, but what I would call gibberish. It was not. She was not speaking in a way that made she could respond to, but she was very patient, listened carefully, spoke to her, and then would stop our tour to talk to her. There was such a respect for the residents there and patients there, and never dismissing them, never distracting them, to the point that I had a question. So before I tell you about the question that I asked that got shot down pretty good, I want you to tell a little bit more about the village with regard to the grocery store and the bar and the pub and the music center and all the rest of the stuff.
It was amazing. So research online, right? We do research online. We check things out, and I thought, okay, a grocery store. How the questions were, how does that work?
Is it fake?
Is it fake? Like, do they just bring the stuff back after they take it? No, they buy their groceries for that day, the meals for that day. They plan out they have a caregiver in the home, talk about the different types of homes. And there is a caregiver in the home that they come in and they discuss, what do we want to have to eat today? And they prepare and plan their menu for the day. And they go to the grocery store. So someone, a few of the residents may go with them to the grocery store, and they actually buy their food from that grocery store. And they just keep a tally, for the house to determine, how much they've spent there and whatnot. But if a resident goes into the grocery store and takes a box of macaroni and cheese, they can take a box of macaroni and cheese and take it back to their home and prepare it, or whatever they need to do with it. But there's milk, there's bread, everything that you would think of a grocery store. Now, it's very small stocks, and they have fresh vegetables and fruit and all of the things that they have brought in. Even they said that other people from other communities come there to grab a gallon of milk to take home that day.
You can come in from the community and get a drink at the bar. You can go to the grocery store. Yeah, go to the restaurant.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And the activities that they have, the music center, the theater, they have movies, they have tons of open outdoor space. So when it's nice outside, which it was when we were there, it was beautiful weather. And they just walk around outside. One gentleman watched him for the 2 days that we were there. And he just walked around. Once in a while he would stop and speak with someone, but he just walked around, and that's what he wanted to do. And he was happy. He was very happy with
Yes.
that, just walking around. And honestly, I would be the same way. If you just don't lock me in a room, let me walk around and have interactions with people. It was just very nice to see that.
So I had a question because I was still kind of stuck in our the way that we do things here, and so we were standing outside the grocery store, and so I talked to Iris and I said, I'm not really understanding this. So what if somebody comes in? So before I go on to this story, we want to make it clear these are not light dementia. This is not early dementia.
Oh, no.
So they have in the Netherlands, they have definitions of levels. And so the top two levels are 5 and 7. I don't know why they skip 6,
Yeah.
but they do. So there's 5 and 7. 5 is a really high level of dementia. Okay. You cannot be a resident of the dementia village of Hogeweyk until you're at level 5. So all of the early stages of dementia are not, you can't. So I think both of us imagined that they were going to be, these are folks that, maybe they need a little help, but they just need a little guidance, but they really don't, they're not really severe dementia. These were severe dementia, and it's a requirement that you be there. And so my question was, okay, so you have these folks kind of walking around. I'm still not quite getting this because, like, in the United States, we're all about safety and making sure that nobody falls. This is not what we do for regular folks. This is what, if somebody's following me around to make sure I don't fall, I fall all the time. I'm clumsy. So, Amy currently broke her ankles. The idea is that's not what we do for regular, situations. And yet, if for some reason, when somebody has dementia, we're like, we can't allow them to have any risk. Okay. Well, I believed that for years. And this is why it was kind of transformational for us. They're like, okay, but people fall sometimes, that's okay. If it's about quality of life, you have to have a little bit of risk involved in that. But that's not what we understood. That's not what I understood. One of the things I was like, okay, there's this grocery store and you've got people with really pretty severe dementia and Alzheimer's. What if somebody walks in and just takes something off of the shelf and walks out? And I said, well, I imagine you just try to distract them and then put it back. And they don't use the word distraction there. This is something I have been telling people for 20 years now, that when you have somebody that has behaviors, we try to distract them and put them onto something else. And they're just like, no, we deal with it on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it's something that we'll work with their caregiver and it might be returned. Sometimes we charge the account. Sometimes we just charge it to their house, which is part of their, each, we're going to talk about houses in a minute here, but each person is assigned to a specific house with 6 people in each house. Mm-hmm. And so that was just, that was not the way I normally expect things. When we have what we would normally call bad behavior, their answer is, well, that's not necessarily bad behavior. We just deal with it. Everybody's a little bit different. Some people we might say, hey, what are we doing with that? Some people, that's not the best answer because they might get upset by it. And so we just let them take it and maybe assign it to their house, or maybe if they have some money, we assign it to their account. Let's talk about behaviors, because that was the fascinating thing about this. I think that was the most interesting thing in our office. So we're an elder law office. We help a lot of people with a lot of different long-term care needs, but a good portion of our clients have a loved one with dementia. And what's coming up more and more is what we call behaviors. And that might be wandering, that might be aggression, that might be whatever it is. And they have very little behaviors at Hogeweyk.
We never saw it.
Yeah, why is that? It's not that they don't have any behaviors in Holland. It's not that they don't have any behaviors in the Netherlands. It's they don't have it there. And there's a couple reasons, and I want to get into one of them in a minute, but one of them was freedom, right?
Yes.
So I'm the type of person that needs to be alone sometimes. I don't always like to be around a lot of people. And so if you tell me I can't go and walk around, what does that sound like? Wandering?
Right, exactly.
Right. And so if you tell me I can't, they would say, have a behavior of wandering, and I can't go and just be by myself and walk around by myself for a little bit, I might have some behaviors.
Exactly.
The idea is they don't, and then talk about sundowners and how, if you want to talk about, because that's a big thing that we hear here, and they said really sundowners is not really a big thing in Hogeweyk.
No, that's why they let them have their freedom. They're able to walk around all day. The gentleman in question. So one of the things Bob had brought up about the falls, he had weights on his
which is
ankles.
new. I asked, my wife is an occupational therapist, and I asked her about it, and she said, no, I've never heard of that, but it makes a ton of sense.
It totally does.
So that they can feel their steps. Because part of the thing about dementia is the brain's not always connecting everything. But if you emphasize it by putting ankle weights on, you're more likely to feel your steps and less likely to fall.
That was just amazing information I'd never heard.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first things that I brought back here to the social workers.
Yeah.
That this could actually be transformational because first of all, it actually triggers their brain to make bigger steps. So they're not shuffling and they're not falling. But it also, all of that walking all day long with ankle weights around your ankles will make you kind of tired, right? And they don't have sundowner problems because they give them that freedom, the ability to just walk around, interact with others. They're not necessarily, now in some cases maybe, but they're not laying in a bed all day.
Mm-hmm.
They're not cooped up in a room all day where they're not able to get around. Remember, we only said there's one caregiver for 6 or 7 people in a home, and they don't have a caregiver at night. There's no one there at night with them. But there are workers in the village.
I know a lot of you are scared by that. We're going to talk about that in a second.
There are workers in the village.
Yeah.
And, they can deal with things as they come about.
Because they don't need it.
Yeah. They go to
sleep. So they used to.
They sleep.
They told us about it. They used to have the caregivers stay in the house at night, and then they realized it was unnecessary because of the nature of things. So the one thing I want to point out in relation to that is care is always present. So it sounds like this is all like hippie free-for-all kind of stuff, right? And so the reality is care is always present. So the woman that followed us, and she really did stay with us for the whole tour. And it was amazing because she was interested. She didn't understand. And the guy, Iris, told us that she could not have understood everything that we were talking about because she doesn't speak English. And we were speaking mostly in English. But she was engaged. She was leaning in. She had a good day that day because she got to spend time with the Americans. And she just had a good day that day. And it didn't matter that she didn't understand because probably somebody with dementia is not going to understand that. But she had an opportunity to participate, to be respected, to be heard, to be acknowledged as a person and not as a invalid that needs to be served, which is something, the service mentality is something that they really try to avoid there. But the key on this was care is always present. So as we were concluding our walk through the village, it was fascinating to me because my question was, okay, I know you have lunch in your houses. Like each house has their own lunch. Each house has their own dinner. And it might be different. And we'll talk about that in a second about how each house might have a different dinner. It's not everybody gets the same thing. And so I was like, okay, how does this work? Because people are wandering around, and we never did get the name of the woman. I'm not sure that we would be able to pronounce her name because it would have been a Dutch name, and there's a lot of consonants in Dutch names, and so. But we did not get her name. But we saw a caregiver walking her back to her house at lunchtime, and it was just natural. It was very natural. So let's talk a little bit about the houses, because I think that's important for folks that are really interested in Hogeweyk and the Dementia Village, about how the houses are all very different. And so tell us a little bit about the cultural differences between each house.
So if you grew up in a urban area of the Netherlands, then you would be in a urban home. And so have residents and people that you're staying with in your home that have grown up basically in the same type of environment. So you might, if you grew up in a rich area, you influenced, you
Rich
came
area, that's
rich
fine.
area.
Yeah.
You came with, you grew up and you had the nicer things. Those homes have fine china where the other homes may not. They don't care about those, that fine china, right? They have the nicer china, they have the crystal lamps, they have all of those types of things. When another home isn't like that, but they didn't grow up that way.
So I would bet, Amy, that you and I, when we were growing up, because there were some set plates that everybody had, there were set couches that everybody had. I would bet that in your house, you had the same couches that my parents had, the same plates that my parents had, and that's what they do. They don't do the most modern thing because those plates and couches are not that common right now.
No,
but they go back to what they would have known, would have been comfortable for them. And so the people, Netherlands is very interesting because it's, European and all of that. And I want to get back to that just for a second, but there is a whole lot of different people. There's people that grew up on a farm. And so those folks, they typically make their meal plan more of a meat and potatoes kind of a thing, very traditional Dutch meal. And there's people that have traveled a lot internationally or, to different countries. And so they have a more eclectic, meal schedule. There's folks that just lived in the cities, but they try to set it up that way. One of the things, and this is just down a tangent here, but the one of the things I really appreciate about going to Amsterdam, which was really interesting, in the United States, we have sliced bread. And the thing about sliced bread is that means it gets to be kept they put preservatives in it and they keep it on the shelves for many months and then, I don't know. I might be exaggerating, but they keep it on the shelves and then we keep it on the shelf and it doesn't, turn green for a while. And it's traditional in Europe that you buy your bread every day. It's fresh bread every day. And so that's what they do there. They don't skimp on those types of things. And it's very traditional. So they try to make sure that they, match the people with what their comfort level is. I want to tell one more story and then we're going to wrap things up here because this is just an introduction and we hopefully will dive into this a little deeper as far as I know we haven't really given you much information about I know this is pie in the sky for America. I know this isn't realistic that we could do this, but Amy and I have talked a lot about what could we implement here. So we'll do another presentation on what could we take from that and implement here. But I want you to tell the story about the woman that we saw walking around, and I was really nervous for her because she was carrying this actual glass cup. And she was pretty stable on her feet, but she wasn't really all that stable. She's carrying this glass cup. Did you see that? Did you experience that? So tell that story.
In Europe, apparently, that is a thing. Like, they don't use plastic silverware. They
Right.
don't use plastic cups. Everything is glass. Everything. Even your soda is in a glass bottle.
Right.
So everything is glass, which amazed me. And it goes to even the pub. They go into the pub and they can walk out of the pub with a glass. And it's a normal thing. If she were to drop it, they would just sweep it up.
And she did.
Yeah.
We saw somebody, they dropped a glass. And in the United
States,
States, we would have freaked out about that. How did you get that glass?
No.
Whatever. The safety. Whatever. They just helped her make sure she didn't get caught and then immediately swept it up. It was fine. Nobody cared.
You would have never even known
Nobody
that
cared.
happened.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a big deal.
Yes. So one of the things, and we'll just kind of wrap up with this, is, trying to sterilize and create everything as a safety thing. It tends to be our nature here in the United States, particularly with somebody with diminished capacity. Somehow, and it's our parents, I get it, we're more concerned about their safety than their quality of life. I don't know about you. Actually, I do know. Both of us probably make some bad decisions about our health, right? And we choose to do that. Like, we know it would be better if I got up at 6 a.m. and jogged every day. It would be better if I only ate, non-fat, low-fat. But I understand that's what we choose to. And the idea of taking those choices away from folks is the concept of Hogeweyk, is that we really want to give people the ability to have the best quality of life. So thank you for joining us today. We will do more on this. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast at any of the places that you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, visit mannorlawgroup.com.